from Armand Geoffroy. We're at the office, so I had opportunity to get anything out of the cellar, really. And why not? Let's drink some Gevrey 2017, quite soft and quite ready to drink already. That's the 17s. What you got there, James?
I decided to keep it local. I've got the Molyneux Syrah 2016 vintage. It's a vintage that I rate quite highly for Syrah in the Swartland. And there's that beautiful concentrated fruit to it. And I mean, we were speaking about it earlier quickly. You know, it's a vintage that has that kind of dark, dense fruit because of the skin to berry ratio. So absolutely delicious. Sally.
Mike, what you got in your glass?
Well, I'm kind of double tagging it. I'm finishing what I started last night, Kaapse Cabernet. It's pretty snappy. But that's a dead soldier. But I've got my follow-up, which I'm looking forward to, little Thorny Daughters. Very exciting stuff.
Isn't that marketing 101 when you've got an opportunity to promote your own brand?
Yeah, some people would say that it's strong. It's more confident not to.
Okay, fair enough. Bubbles, what do you got there in your glass?
A little bit boring compared to some of you guys, but Miles Mossop Introduction Shannon. It's my go-to Shannon every day. It's whatever time of the day. Easy drinking, very enjoyable. Doesn't hurt the wallet too much. Just a nice, easy drink to start the evening.
Geez, that's a great bottle of wine. I think it completely over delivers. There's a lot of really good fruit in that wine. It's an incredible bottle of wine for the price. Lo?
I just quickly snuck into the fridge there to see what we had cold from last night left over, but I actually found one of our little sideline projects. It's not really labeled right now. It's called Ken Forrester Our Terra Noir, basically Swart Lunch 2018 Chenin Blanc, which is like a little undercover label that we throw around to really select crowd of people. 2018, drinking beautifully right now. Love the aromatics. I think it's been open for a few days, so it's actually nice to see how it evolves in the bottle, but it's just bloody stunning, going down swimmingly right now. Ken doesn't know I'm drinking it, but it's delicious.
Okay. Okay, Paige is our digital marketing manager at Wine Cellar, and Paige wasn't packing orders all day like James and myself. What you drinking there, Paige?
So I don't have the bottle, unfortunately, but I've got a 2008 Vino Tondonia Cubio in my glass. Wow. It's really good. Okay. Lovely for the autumn weather.
Great Rioja. Okay, so for those that didn't join us last week, really, why are we here? What are we doing? And really, we envisaged this a couple of weeks ago when we started seeing how heavily impacted the hospitality industry would be with this COVID-19. And we thought, what could we do? And one of the ways was maybe just to share our skills, to have a platform where we could talk about various aspects of the wine industry. And we could maybe get some of the hospitality industry workers that have lost their jobs to move over into wine. And if you'd watched Carte Blanche a week or so ago, you probably would have heard that we're going to be losing a huge amount of jobs. But because Wine Cellar operates in quite a premium sector, we see that the fine wine market is actually booming. And there's a lot of space, we believe, for fine wine professionals in the wine industry. And I'm sure you all agree, but the industry is underdeveloped as a skill set. And why not? Let's highlight some of the skills that could possibly get you thinking about where to go to in your career. And if you are a waiter, for instance, and you've got some wine knowledge and you're interested in wine, what is it like to get into wine marketing? What is it like to get into sales or in winemaking? And hopefully these webinars can just share some skills and get you thinking about something else. I was lucky enough to order in last night, and I had George Jardine's at home, and I couldn't believe it. We had a 4-course meal. It was 275 Rand, which sounds expensive, folks, but that's only 13 pounds. And it was an incredible meal. We had our own wine, of course, and I just say to you out there, support the restaurants. Order in, get a nice bottle of wine, and just keep them turning, because in a couple months' time, we want them all to be alive, and if they're not alive, we want everyone to have a job. So let's start with the first panelist that we have. It's Mike Radcliffe of Belafonte, And I think few people would argue that Mike has been at the sharp end of marketing in South Africa over the last 15, 20 years. And really what we want to know from you, Mike, is if you were in the hospitality industry or maybe just out of university or school and you wanted to get into wine marketing, what are the skills required and how did you get into it?
Thanks, Roland. And hi, everyone. It's great to be on a Friday night, and I'm really happy this is not a dry session. My little glass of red is lubricating the way quite nicely, so cheers. This is a big topic, could probably fill an hour. And I've been told very strictly that I've got a time limit, so I'm going to press go on my stopwatch here, because otherwise I get in terrible trouble. The wine marketing is not unlike marketing in general. So a lot of the broad stroke principles that apply to wine marketing would apply to marketing in pretty much any subject. So I've tried to break it down into 4 golden rules, and I'll touch on those topics and try and spend a minute on each one. My first one is be prepared. So I've always thought that there's a lot of inane and painful marketing. You only have to go to Twitter or Facebook to see how painful it can be. You only have to subscribe to a number of winery newsletters just to find out how boring it is. And lately in lockdown, there are a number of wine tastings around the world that really are quite painful. So you need to be prepared. You need to ask the question of why am I doing this? What is the desired outcome? And as my partner in Belafonte taught me many years ago, he said, let's start at the outcome and work backwards from there, the desired outcome. So it always helps if you know your subject. So that's going to make you an effective marketer. It also helps if you're an expert. You don't have to be a general expert. Wine is multifaceted. It covers so many different topics, from viticulture to logistics to storage to fine wine to supermarkets. Pick your topic that you're good at, and that's probably what you're going to be passionate about, and that's probably going to make you most effective. So be an expert. It's important to be on top of your game about something, not about everything, because nobody's an expert about everything. And another thing in being prepared is be prepared for what question you're going to ask. If you're doing marketing, and inevitably the outcome will be, please buy my wine, or please pay more for my wine. And if your outcome is that, only ask that. Don't ask too many questions. And so the outcome usually starts with, what question am I eventually going to ask? And then work backwards from there. That's my first point. My second point, on a slightly similar vein, is, and I see this so many times, is stay in your lane. Once you know what you're good at, stick to it. Get better at it. And obviously, it doesn't help if you're a wine marketer and your expertise is Western Province rugby. You know, you better be good at something to do with wine marketing. But I always think that it's important to stay in your lane. And this is specifically when it comes to digital marketing. The greatest people that I follow on social media, and Twitter specifically, are the people that hammer on the same topic over and over again from multiple different angles, unearthing new nuances, looking for new angles on a very specific lane that they've chosen. And I think that's one of the topics. Is just focus on what you're good at, which almost goes back to point one. Pick a story, stay in your lane, keep doing it, and know your strength. You know, your strength is what you're going to be playing at, and that's what's going to make you special.
Mike,
third point. Yeah.
Okay, so you're on 3 now, are you?
I've got 2 more. Yeah, the last one's very short, but
okay,
you can ask
cool.
a question, because this is not a science, Roland.
No, keep going, Mike.
Okay. So the third one, be passionate. The greatest marketers tell stories. They never sell a product. They're consistently finding a new, nuanced, interesting way to package their ultimate objective of buy this or pay attention to this. They package it into a story. And telling a story, I think, is one of the most important things. And telling a story is going to be easier if you know your topic, and it's going to be easier if you're an expert, and you're going to have more confidence if you know that in your particular subject matter you have some sort of respect. It also helps if you have some integrity and honesty. And one thing that I've come across often is we need more humans in the wine marketing department. You know, people react well to people. People react well to relationships. And for those of you out there that are watching this, you all know, and you've heard this 100 times, and it's absolutely true. Wine marketing is really about relationships. It's about finding connections with people and speaking from the heart and telling stories. You know, it's a slam dunk. You can underline that one. And my final one, which is very short, and it's probably the hardest one, is try to be innovative. There's almost nothing in the field of wine marketing that hasn't been done before. Everybody has done something, but the world is changing right in front of us. It's changing under our feet at the moment. The field has never been more ripe for innovation, for doing something different. I mean, right now, the fact that we have this is not odd that we're all sitting on a Friday night having a glass of wine, having a little chit chat. That is massive. The world is changing. You alluded to it earlier, Roland. I mean, I've been around the world today. I've been in China, I've been in Western Australia. Okay, it was not a particularly globetrotting day, but during the week, I've been able to interact with clients all around the world without getting on a plane, and I got just as much impact. So now is definitely the time to be innovative and do something different. I think on that note, I'm going to hand over to our esteemed moderator.
Mike, I've got so many questions here, and as you say, it could take a whole hour. So I've got a few, and the panelists must come in as well. So just to relate back to South Africa, we're very lucky. We deal with some really incredible international brands. We had a colleague here that worked for Dom Perignon for some time, and we started understanding how the marketing at Dom Perignon worked. And we then compared that to some of our premium MCC Classique producers. And it was really chalk and cheese by the way that they handled their products compared to how we're handling some of our products. Are we massively behind on our wine marketing?
I can make that a fairly short answer if you like. The answer is yes, we are very far behind. I think the good positive thing about that is that if you know you're behind, then you can put your foot on the gas and do things differently. But we're not behind everybody. I think we're behind the leaders. And there's that classic story. I don't know if it's an old wives' tale, but it's a classic story about you're with a group of friends and you're being chased by a lion. You don't need to be the fastest in the group. You just mustn't be the slowest. So I don't think we're the slowest. I think wine marketing is multifaceted, but let's face it, keep an eye on the Americans. That's where it's all happening.
Okay, interesting. The other thing I wanted to say was, do you think marketing in the future is possible in this format, sitting behind a computer, discussing with your customers over Zoom, or is going to see them going to be as important or less important?
I think we are in the future already, and I think that the power of digital marketing has crept up on us, and then we got engulfed by a tidal wave, literally in the last 2 months. So we'll never go back. But I do think that there are various things that I alluded to about being human, and some of the human touch is very difficult to simulate effectively or honestly with integrity on a digital platform. So, you know, one of the things that I like to do is do a handwritten note, send it with a courier, and send it to somebody if I want to thank them for something. I just came from an online event with Bertus Besson, and you know, he's sending people a jar of onion marmalade to say thank you for buying his parcels. You know, so there's little things that are still remote but separate you from the pack, can be important. But ultimately, the greatest brands, when lockdown is over, will revert back to at least making sure that they have a human touch.
Any of the panelists got a question? There is one that's come in on the Q&A. What is the big difference between advertising and wine advertising and wine marketing? Is that just a broad question?
Yeah, there's two ways of looking at it. Advertising effectively is a marketing tool. So that's the simple black and white thing. But from a wine industry perspective, where marketing budgets are generally limited, the difference between wine marketing and wine advertising is that one, you have to you have to put money down for, and the other one apparently comes for free. So, you know, the wine industry is world class at you know, getting sneaky value added in and getting stuff for free. You know, we're world class at that. But you know, advertising is massive. For those of you out in Zoom land and YouTube land at the moment, you know, if you haven't discovered Google Ads, if you haven't discovered Facebook paid advertising, you know, you're just not on it, and you've got to wake up, because that's the only place where it's happening at the moment. And it doesn't need to be a military operation. You can have heart and still pay for advertising. You still can be an artiste and a garagiste and pay for advertising, because that's how you get to people.
Paige, you wanted to comment on that?
Well, yeah, that goes straight into digital marketing pretty much. You know, I don't know, I'm just going to go with what I was going to say tonight. But, you know, marketing has always been about meeting your target market and your consumers and your community where they are in the right place at the right time. And right now that's online, and it's not going to change. It's just going to get more and more around the world. People are spending more times on their devices. So yeah, but the great thing with digital marketing is that it's got so much more trackability than any of the traditional methods ever had. And so, you know, it's a great thing to be able to monitor and see what you're doing right, see where you can change. And yeah, we've really got a lot of tools at our disposal now.
Okay, so Paige is going to talk a little bit more about digital marketing a little bit later. But let's thank you, Mike, and please interject with any questions or any other insights. Let's move on to James. We at Wine Cellar we play a difficult game, because we see the marketing coming through from the wineries, and we also talk to the customers. So we're somewhere in between, and we kind of see what works and what doesn't. So James, what works and what doesn't?
It's quite interesting. Good evening, everybody. I mean, I buy and sell wine for a living, and I've been doing it for quite some time. And what I find fascinating, and it links onto something that Mike said, is that sales and marketing, and I think Lo will mention that sales and marketing are often clumped together. And although they are linked, they are pretty much a separate entity. And one of my concerns is you often find that the marketeers in the South African wine space are the first kind of jobs to be culled when there's pressure, or people just don't have someone like that. So that's one of my first kind of problems, is that, you know, when I'm dealing with a product, is that I try and get to grips with what is your vision and what's your story. Mike touched on something that I really like in terms of, and I'm jumping to a completely different angle now, but one of Wine Cellar's successful elements in terms of our marketing is that we've kind of stayed in our lane. And one of those lanes is what we call fine wine. So fine wine is a particular message that we've been banging on for ever since I've joined. And that's how you get to grips with what your message is. This is a very clear and simple example of a part of Wine Cellar's marketing strategy. And initially we were just selling international wines. Then initially we were just storing wines. Then we started selling international wines. Then we started selling fine South African wines. Then we moved into auctioning. Then we do brokerage. All those elements are all fine wine elements, and they are crucial and fantastically fits into the whole idea of staying in our lane. And the other elements that I think are really crucial about marketing, and I'm not a marketeer as well, I mean, I sell wine for a living, is that opportunity and creativity, you need to be awake and you need to be nimble. And it's never been a time to be more nimble and on your feet, to recognize the myriad of opportunities out there. The digital space is live. I mean, it's amazing what you can do. And we have the opportunities now to speak with your voice. You don't have to use an ad campaign. Try and be authentic. Try and be real. We focus on fine wine. I'm hammering on it again. The big thing is that if you're selling beverages, there's a different kind of marketing strategy. I think Nicola Tipping in some of the comments mentioned that, you know, there's different marketing strategies for different market segments or even different countries. And I agree with that. Same with your SKUs. You know, if you have 55 SKUs, good luck to you. If you understand where they have to go, brilliant. So I think marketing and sales need to be separate. That's one thing that's important. And I think the other crucial thing is that wineries must make sure that they look after marketing as a distinct portfolio. I mean, you're not going to get rid of your accounting portfolio when you're struggling in bad times. And, your marketing team is as important as your sales team and your accounting team and the people that give you vision and direction. So those two things to me are crucial. And I think South African wineries can do a much better job. The important element is to know where you're going. I think when you start is to know where does your product need to end? Who's your consumer? Who's the person that wants this wine? And where you're placing the wine. So placement of your product, I think, is absolutely crucial and probably the beginning point for a marketing strategy rather than trying to find where to put something that you already made. And I think, Roland, what do you think about that? I mean,
No, I mean, we talk about it a lot in the office. We have adjacent offices and we have a window that we talk through every day. Through this window, we're always talking about brands. And either the brand is on it and they're proactive and they're coming towards us with a vision and with a marketing strategy, or they're looking at us and saying, how do we sell this wine? Can you sell our wine? And we kind of get back to them and say, we'd love to sell your wine, but what have you done to market your wine? How have you placed this wine in the market? How are consumers going to connect with this wine? And we've been seeing it quite succinctly with a ramp up in online orders, which brands are selling and which ones are not. And frankly, the ones that are selling are the ones with the biggest brand equity. Again, on the Strauss & Co. auctions, the wines that are selling at the highest prices are those that have the built-in brand equity, and those that haven't been communicating to the market are not doing very well at all. So I agree with you, James. Marketing has become such an important tool.
Yeah, communication. I mean, I guess that's part of marketing's role, is that it is your tool to communicate your product and how to figure out how to take it to market. Obviously, you want to sell it, but you sell it by telling a story. Again, one of Mike's points. We are telling stories, and wine is probably one of the most storied products out there. There is no other agricultural product with these nuances, and this absolutely, I mean, it's got so much magic in it. So to put a label on and go like, okay, it must be this price and you have to sell it at this kind of price point and blah, 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 with this umbrella and that's nonsense. Then you're selling Coca-Cola or a beer with a red star on it. Simple as that.
Okay, we'll try and get to the questions at the end, unless they're very pertinent to one of the speakers. Well, let's move on. Thank you, James, and we can talk further about that as we move along. Now we're going on to Bubbles, Highland, and Bubbles has got a bit of a multifaceted role in the wine industry. Very passionate about wines and is a wine distributor under Morvino. But also is quite active on social media, and it was important to have someone on a social media platform to come in and talk a little bit about it. But Bubbles, let's just maybe start with a little bit of your background. How did you get into wine, and what do you do on a day-to-day basis now?
Hi. So I've been in the industry for about 8 years now. I actually started in the hospitality industry. I was working for a very cool hotel on Long Street that had trailers on the rooftop. But they had the most boring wine list you've ever seen. You can imagine all those very boring, I won't mention any names, the stock standard boring wine lists. And I was like, no, I loved wine, but I was in the marketing role there. And I was like, please just give me your wine list. I need to sort this out. And in that process, I met Terence and Clark, who are now my business partners at Morvino. And they thankfully got me out of that job and gave me a job at Morvino, well, at Cirrus then. And I was a little bit scared because I'd never done anything with sales before. You get some people who can sell ice to an Eskimo, but that's definitely not me. But I soon realized that it was a relationship game, and that's basically what you needed to do. You need to build relationships with your clients. So as a wine rep, basically what you do is you have an area that you look after. You go and call on those clients on a daily or on a weekly basis, bi-weekly basis, and you try and sell them the portfolio of wines that you look after. So you're telling the story, you've obviously got to know the brands that you look after very well. You need to know those stories. You need to be inspired by the winemakers, inspired by the brands, hopefully, that you look after, and be passionate about it. And then you need to sell that to the trade consumer. Often, going back to what you guys were talking about just now, often people get confused. They think that now that if you've got a wine rep on the road, you don't need to have marketing. But we're only selling to the trade. We're not selling to the end consumer. So there's no point getting that wine on the wine list or getting it into a shop if the consumer doesn't know about it, and then it's not going to move. But to be a wine rep, basically, it is a relationship game. The hospitality industry does fit quite nice. It's quite a nice lead into the wine industry. Actually, when we're looking through CVs, trying to get wine reps in, if we see that they've had hospitality experience, it's a massive tick. And the majority of the people that we employ have come from hospitality. Because if you're in hospitality, then generally you're a people's person, and that's what you need to be. You also need to have passion for wine, obviously, and very massive organizational skills. It's and a lot of self-discipline as well. So yeah, it's basically you want your clients to, you want to build that relationship so that if they're looking for a new Merlot at a certain price point, that the first person they think to call is you, and ask you what you've got and how you can assist them. You want to be at the front of everybody's mind. So you need to build that relationship. And a lot of my clients have become friends. You get so submerged into the wine industry, it becomes your life. It's not a 9-to-5 job. It's like being on call all the time, but it doesn't matter because these people become your friends, and you invite them over for braais, and you open up good wine, and you all share the same passion. So it's great. But yeah, it's basically, you just have to be passionate about it, and you have to just enjoy people as a wine rep. But coming from a marketing background, there was something missing with the wine rep role that I had. I needed some sort of creative input, and that's what led to my social media side of it. So because I was having all these awesome wines and meeting all these amazing people and going to these amazing wineries and seeing all these stunning views and things like that, coming from England as well, it's not anything like people in England have seen before. So I started capturing it and putting it onto social media and telling my story and sharing sip by sip everything that I was doing. All my friends in England sort of wonder what my job is, because I'm constantly having nice lunches and drinking amazing wine, and they don't see the other side of it that I don't put on Instagram. So that's what led me into the online sort of portal. I hate the word influencer, but I think it's becoming quite important in this industry at the moment. We are going online. We are spending a lot more time online, and influencers are a part of that. The problem is you get a lot of influencers who are just there for the free bottles of wine and the press drops and the lunches and things like that, and they don't really have the knowledge. They don't have the experience. They don't have the understanding of anything of it. So there's a big divide, and I don't want to be classed into that. I love writing. I love writing about wine. I love taking photos of wine, but I'm not good enough to be a journalist, and I don't think I need to be on social media. I just need to have some sort of personality. I want to make wine relatable, accessible, take the snobbery side out of it, and just make it fun. And that's what I try and do.
That's an interesting point, because can you be a marketeer or a wine critic or a wine writer today without being on social media? We all are on social media, and the amount of tweets that we get from Tim Atkin and Jamie Good and these guys, it's frantic. It's a lot. You almost think that they're glued to their phone. Do you need to be like that? Is that a big part of marketing today?
Yeah, I suppose it is. I mean, it depends on what your target audience is. I mean, is Parker online all the time, and he's probably the most influential wine writer we've ever had.
He's retired, but I think he thankfully retired before social media blew up. I think it's in what, if they want to be relevant and if they want to have a social media following and be influential to that market. But if they're sort of take themselves more seriously and they're just writing for a certain publication or something, then they don't have to be. But then they will miss out on a whole generation of people who are online. So yeah. And can you do business on social media? Do you find that it helps with your everyday business with selling wine? I mean, that's really the primary role, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps. It helps, for me at the moment right now, supporting my clients, whether it's the wine farms I look after or the restaurants that I supply or the retail I supply. If I support them online, then they really appreciate it. So it's again building the relationships, and it's giving and it's taking. So I do that a lot, you know, but I promote my brands, I promote my restaurants and my retail and things like that. So it does tie in. But I would never be paid for anything. I need to stay, I need to, be authentic, and you get some people who put out rates cards, and, you know, if you want me to drink your wine, then you must pay me. I'm like, no, then you might as well just put it on a billboard. You know, it's not about that. You've got to be authentic. You've got to believe in what you say. So I think that's quite important as well. I don't think money should come into it. It's all about relationships and being passionate and believing in what you're saying, and yeah, just enjoying the ride.
Completely. Great. Well, thank you, Bubbles. Okay, we'll address more questions at the end. Let's talk to Paige now, who's our digital marketing manager. Paige, maybe you can just describe your role at Wine Cellar, and then, yeah, what makes digital marketing, I guess.
Cool. So at Wine Cellar, I do everything for the online digital marketing team. And that involves everything from our Google ad campaigns to building our websites to making sure that our social media is on track with our team. And the only difference with digital marketing versus normal marketing is that it is taken onto a digital device or on the internet. So yeah, standard marketing, like Mike Radcliffe was just saying.
Just unmute myself. Maybe, Paige, you're still relatively young, and you do a terrific job for Wine Cellar. You started off with Wine Cellar, what, 4 years ago as an intern, and today you're running the entire marketing, essentially, of Wine Cellar. What's that journey been like?
It's been a massive learning curve, but I've really enjoyed it. I think, you know, if there was something I didn't know, I did a course and I learned about it, having real data on hand from a functioning company. It just forces you to grow, and it forces you to learn skills, and you've already got the marketing data to work off. So yeah, it's been a good learning curve, that's for sure.
Great.
I'm going to jump in here. Where Paige is great, and this is the nimble element that I spoke to previously. Paige learned so quickly because Roland and myself, through that little window, we come up with these like little flash ideas at 9:30 in the morning, and 10:30 that same morning we expect everything to have happened. And that's been an incredible kind of part of our success, I think, at Wine Cellar, is that we have this kind of speed to interact with our ideas and our creativity, and there's a whole big team that works around that. And Paige, that is, would you say that's a really crucial skill about marketing as well, is to really pick up on a message and quickly try and translate it?
Yeah, I was going to mention that in my little on my tips and skills that I recommend, is that the more agile and the more nimble you can be, the faster to market you are. And as long as you're doing it carefully and with your authentic voice, you can really be ahead of the pack if you're able to be quick off the bat, you know. So I will just go into digital marketing. It's incredibly hard to summarize digital marketing without being too geeky and in 10 minutes. So I'm just
geeky, go for it.
I'm all about the geeky stuff. Okay, so like I was saying earlier, it covers a broad spectrum of platforms, whether it's your website, your blogs, videos, social media, email campaigns, paid per click advertising, whether that's on social media or if it's with Google Ads or a different partner like that, as well as your SEO and your online PR. As a business, it can maybe be, you think digital marketing and you think impersonal, but it doesn't have to be like that. It can be incredibly authentic to your in-house brand and who you are as a people and a team. And I think that's the important thing to remember, especially in wine marketing as you move into a digital space. A business-to-business company versus a business to consumer company will choose various channels based on where their marketing, where they want to put their communication. And I think it's important that brands don't try and do it all, but rather try and do what's relevant to them. Choose the channels that work for your brand, choose the channels that you can do well, and get to more of them in the future if you have, more availability to get there. that brings me to in-house versus outsourcing. The nice thing about working with wine cellars is that we do a lot of our stuff in-house, and that makes us very agile in that what we can churn out and change our plans and our strategies without notifying a team. Obviously, outsourcing comes with its pros. You get a specialized team on board that has lots of experience in that specific channel, and that comes with all the knowledge and experience. But I think when you're choosing an outsourced company, you need to make sure that they have an understanding of who you talk to, your customer base, because it's one thing dealing with an AdWords specialist, but if they don't know wine, I think you can lose out a little bit there. So it's important when choosing your teams.
Well, sometimes at Wine Cellar, we're amazed. We don't even understand what Paige does, and yet she gets it right. So it's, you know, maybe it's a question to pose to Mike. Mike, I mean, you've been in the space for two and a half decades. As a young marketeer, your role must have been incredibly different 20 years ago.
What did you just say? That's horrible. Yeah, I mean, certainly things have changed. Digital, you know, and Roland, I'm not that old, dude. Yeah, the world has changed. I mean, digital has taken over the world. I made the point earlier, if you're not on the train, you're off the train, you're behind, you're going to lose. So get on the train. But seeing as we're talking about influencers at the moment and the power of marketing, you know, going back 20 years, the people that were experts, that were very good at very specific things, demanded recognition and got it. So I guess the underlying fundamentals of wine marketing haven't really changed too much. It's the channels and the strategies that have changed. But actually, let me retract that statement. It's probably the channels that have changed. The strategies probably haven't changed that much. You know, if you speak to a consumer with integrity, you make sure that you're speaking to somebody saying the right thing to the right person who actually wants to hear what you've got to say, you're likely to be successful. So that's an easy thing to say. But finding the channels to get to the right people is difficult. In this day and age, those channels are digital. Full stop.
Paige, just thanks, Mike. And you're certainly not old. You're evergreen. You keep at it. Paige, just give us an example of how you'd use the data that you collect from the marketing or from our website or SEO, and how you'd use that then in marketing. Just give us a sort of an example.
Oh, big question, but you know, we have information coming at us from all our platforms, and as long as you know how to use your platforms and you know their functionality and their reporting features, you can get a lot of information, firstly about who you're speaking to. So we've learned a lot about that over the, you know, through our email campaigns and our social media. You know, who is Wine Cellar speaking to when we put out a message? And from there, we can see that if we tailor small things like our subject lines in emails versus how frequently we post on social media, you learn something every time you put something out there. And we've been able to really streamline into what we do well, and we've chosen our niche, and now we stick to it. Like James says, stay in your lane.
Paige, could I ask you a question? What CRM platform or what email platform are you using? For emails,
so for emails, we use MailChimp because it integrates really well across our website as well. So we're able to track a lot of more with that functionality. So yeah, I wouldn't change from MailChimp.
So I have to be honest to say I would have known that because your presentations are very professional. But to all of you out there in Zoom land, use MailChimp. You know, it is the best. We've been around the block. Don't go and experiment. It's the best. And the best technology does not exist in South Africa. It all comes out of Silicon Valley. Pay for it. Don't use the free version. Pay. If you're using Zoom, pay. It's $8 a month. Pay. You get a better platform. If you're using MailChimp, pay. You know, if you add all these expenses up, you're going to get up to about 2,000 Rand a month. It's really insignificant, but the number of people, you know, I have a consulting business, and the number of people that refuse to pay the $8 a month because they think they can get by on the free platform, don't do it, people. The whole of America and the whole of Silicon Valley has spent billions of dollars creating free software that you can use effectively for free in South Africa. So use them.
It's a very good point, Mike. And oh, sorry, Bubbles, you carry on.
I just wanted to say that, you know, as we spoke earlier, there's tough times at the moment, and a lot of marketing managers are being let go and things like that. Marketing doesn't have to cost a lot of money, you know, like, yes, if you pay these little bits of money to have premium versions of MailChimp and whatever, but generally marketing, if you're now digital marketing, there's so much free marketing you can do. And you just need someone to run it, and you just pay their salary, and that's pretty much your cost done. You know, it's not PR, it's not advertising, big billboards or anything like that. You just need someone who knows what they're doing, pay their salary, and get it done. And brands can't succeed without marketing. You know, and having a sales manager who's /marketing, who thinks just calling on trade clients is their job, that's not marketing. You need somebody to talk about your brand, to sell your story, to get those labels known and seen so that people will buy that brand and understand it and love it and have a passion for it.
That's a great point. And even myself, being at Wine Cellar for 15 years, it took a bit of a mindset change for me to start paying, you know, Google AdWords and paying for a few of these software iterations, which was just not in my culture of marketing. So, you know, you need someone to understand what's going on there, and you need to engage and just trust them and be on top of it, because it changes very quickly. Okay, before we move on, Lo is the commercial and marketing manager of Ken Forrester Vineyards. I think Ken has been doing it for so long, he needs to pass the baton on. And who better than his son-in-law or future son-in-law? I know he mutes you, but we want to hear what you have to say. So
sorry, there we go. Hi, Roland. How's everybody? Yeah, it's great to be part of this group of panelists. It's really been informative, and thanks to everybody and your input so far. I'm learning a hell of a lot. I mean, I'm just jotting down ideas as I go. But correct, yeah. You know, it's this whole space these days. It's changed so quickly, and you know, from our perspective as a brand, before I get into, you know, how I personally got into the wine industry and anything like that, but you know, the space is really fast forwarded so quickly. And I think it's not just us within the wine industry, but you can even, you know, my wife who works for one of these ad agencies that you've referred to, and they're big corporate clients, we're talking about, you know, massive clients, had an original rollout of the digital space spread over 6 years. And with COVID coming in, they had to roll it out in 3 weeks. And they basically gained 6 years worth of, you know, learning curve experience in a 3-week matter of time. And if we can take that in our industry as a wine industry and condense it down to smaller SMEs, I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to really catch up quickly to, like Mike referred to, you know, Silicon Valley, the Americans, direct-to-consumer business, marketing, all these sorts of things. They've been the pioneers, and I believe Australia is not far behind them either. But I mean, everything you've said, really, it sounds like you've been sort of talking about, you know, us as a brand very, you know, I could say quietly without knowing it. Coming into the company 2 years ago, or rejoining the company 2 years ago, you know, we had all of a Facebook page, and we had an Instagram page, but no one was doing it. And a part of that whole all-encompassing title, you just said commercial manager, which entails marketing and sales strategies, which we'll touch in a second, you know, took it on my own shoulders with Ken's obviously encouragement to say, listen, what can we do? We are a little bit behind, where are we? And I'd like to think 2 years later, we've come a very, very long way. And it's not with, you know, just myself, it's been a team effort big time. And it's a massive learning curve. And we ourselves took a little mindset shift to buy into paying for the MailChimps, Google ads, you know, getting out there, promoting your Instagram posts, promoting those Facebook posts, but coordinated. And I think that's what Paige would definitely allude to, is that digital is such an exciting space because it's targeted. You can really shape a digital consumer and target that consumer in a geographical space, not even just in the digital space. And that's what makes all of this so exciting and really so effective from a marketing perspective. But tying it back to the original chat about marketing and sales, and James has already alluded to it, you know, having held previous positions in other companies within the industry, I was a marketing and sales manager, and we found ourselves in the industry, like James said, come together. And these these two roles, sales and marketing, are complementary, but they aren't necessarily the same, like I say, device used within a company or department. They one helps the other. Marketing generates the leads, generates interest in the business, and the salespeople have to go out there and convert. And that is, again, on the sales side, it's really that personable thing that we've spoken about. So I think, Mike is 100% correct. Like, Rowan, you asked the question about the digital space and is ProVine still going to be relevant for us in terms of the international thing? I still think so. I think we're going to still have to travel out and go see our people, perhaps not as often as we have been. I've been, last 5 years, this is the first time in 5 years, and Mike can definitely build on this much longer for him probably, but first time in 5 years, I've been home for longer than 3 months at a time because we travel. When I was at Ernie House Wines previously, there was times when collectively throughout a year, I was 6 months abroad. And that's massive. That's a massive amount of money invested from a company perspective to try and convert sales out there. And if we can take half of that budget from a traveling perspective and pump it into marketing, digital space, like I said, targeted, I think we can see great results. But to tie it all back together, and please ask questions, this whole initiative that you guys have brought to the forum here is that whole skills challenge. And, to talk to the guys out there, you advertise for those CVs to come in. If you are in the industry, where be it hospitality or looking to get into it, the skill sets I think required to enter the industry and make it, whether you're going to be in sales or marketing, are very complementary. Paige and Bubbles all alluded to it, and I think a lot of us can say our journey started in hospitality. I was at university. I come from the Eastern Cape. There's no wine culture out there. You don't get brought up having wine glasses over Sunday lunches and stuff like that. It's beer and brandewijn. And coming to Stellenbosch, I was opened up to this whole new area, and I studied finance. I didn't even study marketing or anything related to the source or even the wine industry, but I needed a job, and luckily I found my way to a little lesser known winery called Rustenvrede at the time. And that's where I found wine and wine culture, and that's where the passion was ignited. And I think that's one key word we've all alluded to, is that you kind of identify that passion and you start running with it. And it became like I said, fell in love with the whole idea of what wine could be, and this whole part of the world I never even knew about. I mean, I didn't even know you could study winemaking. That's how little I knew about wine at school. Had I known about it at school, I probably would have enrolled in a BSc instead of a BCom, but I didn't. And I was too far down the track with my BCom degree to now change. So I said, well, what else can I do in this space? And I still even tried my hand at finance. I didn't like it. And I turned my back on the finance industry, and I used my connections, for lack of a better description, to see what I can do in the wine space. But, passion opens the field in wine is so all encompassing. And, again, everybody talked about knowledge and, become the expert in an area. And I knew at the time, having friends in the industry, about this is something I would like to do, but I don't feel confident in myself to go out and talk about wine. And how you overcome that is a choice that you make yourself, and you go out and you self-study, for lack of a better description. Again, I've never enrolled in Cape Wine yet. I'd love to do WSET and all that kind of stuff. But it's literally been a journey of self-study for as long as I can remember, the last almost 10 years now. I have a few lucky breaks, admittedly, but it all started in the hospitality industry, from the restaurant floor to restaurant managers to local marketing manager to national, international sales marketing managers. And you just continually learn and upskill yourself to have those conversations. But at the same time, I think what makes an effective salesperson versus marketing aside, to sell wine particularly, is the way you talk about wine, is to sort of talk about wine the way I would have liked somebody to talk to me about wine when I was starting out originally, because it is a very intimidating topic unless you're really operating in a fine wine sphere and you are talking to somebody who understands the nuances between Northern Rhone and Southern Rhone.
That's a good point. Sorry, I'm going to stop you there, Lo. It's a very good point. And I often tell a lot of our staff at Wine Cellar, you think about it from the consumer's point of view. If you were receiving this offer, what would you like to hear about? What would you like to hear about this product or this wine in order to buy it? And that's really important. So we've got a few questions that have come through. And the first one was about how the industry is going to change post-COVID. Well, I think we don't know that for sure. Does anyone want to tackle that question? I I mean, I think it's quite broad. I think digital is definitely going to move on, and online sales have jumped radically. I saw some posts in the US that online sales were about 10% of all retail sales, and they've doubled in the last 8 weeks. And in South Africa, we were about 2%, and we might be at 4 or 5 or 6% after this COVID era. So online is certainly going to happen. I don't know if there are any other comments on how South Africa is going to change post-COVID.
I think if I can just jump in here, Roland, it's as you say, like the whole industry is going to change. And I think first and foremost, the people to feel it in terms of, when and how wine is consumed, it's we're going to see naturally a massive decrease in the on-consumption sphere. So restaurants, hotels, lodges, all the sort of hospitality destinations, most certainly going to feel this big time. And, people are going to start looking towards home consumption more, obviously within moderation, one would hope, but looking for the dining in. You said you had a great meal the other night dining in. I ordered for my wife's birthday 2 weeks ago from Acre, from Baptist Basson, and it was an amazing experience. And here we have a Baptist Basson experience in home. We're drinking, for lack of a better description, wine at an affordable, price. And it just really was awesome. But
okay,
then
Mike, you also wanted to, sorry, I'm going to cut you there. Mike, you also wanted to contribute to that?
Yeah, post-COVID is now. We are in post-COVID already. Everything has changed. Obviously, the fact that on-con is effectively banned domestically, but slowly coming back around the world means that retail has got a significant advantage at the moment. But that advantage got negated 2 days ago because every single on-con license in South Africa got granted an off-con license. So it's game on, people. I think succinctly, there's going to be a shift to the fact that any wine brand owner is going to want to start to get behind the retailers on a digital platform. So for example, if I'm selling my wine through Cellar, for example, if I can use that example, which is a good example, I might say,
nice example,
Roland,
Mike.
Thank you. What if I gave you 1,000 Rand to promote your Facebook post? In effect, supplementing your budget and influencing, inadvertently making Wine Cellar my influencer. There's a fine line there, but I want to sell more wine, and so do you, and the consumer wants to get more wine. So there's going to be an ethical and moral dilemma for retailers to decide who are you going to allow to supplement your marketing budget. I'll leave it to the panel.
Yes, it's quite an interesting point you're making there. I mean, it's one of Wine Cellar's special significant points I'm hoping is going to carry us through, is that we don't partake in any of that. And I hope we won't ever, because we have a voice that we try and maintain. We try to keep to our lane. Roland, myself, the rest of the team, Johan, Yulette, etc. We all drink wines passionately, and we need to continue to tell our story. And that story is really important. And there are so many stories out there to tell, but we have to choose our stories and keep with that, because at the end of the day, that is why we are successful, is because we have people that trust us. And that trust needs to be protected. So I'm hoping we
James,
can...
I admire your moral and ethical. I admire your moral and ethical stance, and well, I respect you for that. But in life, not everybody carries the same morals and ethics, and there are many people selling wine around the world. This is a global game, and who just because a respected retailer says this is the best wine they've ever tasted, is it really?
Really, that's the way we roll at the moment, and we're going to keep it like that. That's our thing. And I believe that, and that's one of those experiences you have when you work on a floor in a restaurant, is that you recognize what the person wants to hear from you. People understand, people can hear, they can hear the truth. We've seen it in offers. If you're a little bit less excited about a wine than you think you should have to try and sell lots of it, they pick up the tone. So tone is something that I think COVID has even highlighted more, because when we're moving into the Zoom space, we've even taken tone further away, but yet people are still looking for tone. And tone is authenticity. And it's something, if it comes from the right place, people have a knack for picking up on the right fiber or tone of what you're selling them. And I think Wine Cellar is like just stuck to that. And we're going to see a lot of, there's going to be a lot of, what do you call it? Sharks in the pool after one piece of bait. And yeah, we're going to have to fight the fight, but with staying in our lane. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, good call.
That was Roland's question.
There was another question about how do we trust online retailers? How do we move from a brick and mortar store to an online store? And you know, that's what James said. It's about trust. We've been around for 20 years, and hopefully, when you click on our website, you see the entire platform. You see what we do. You get a delivery in the allotted time, and you start trusting us. And that trust, like it's built up at any brick and mortar store, can be built up online too. That's important. I mean, Paige, how important is it to have a presence online, not just be a website?
Yeah, you can't just be a website. You have to have a full, all-encompassing presence, always pointing towards your website. You use your social media, you use your Google AdWords, you use whatever channels work for you, and you get them to continuously point towards your website. And then you deliver on the promises that you have there. That's how you get trust.
Yeah, there's another question about fine wine. Sorry, Lo, you wanted to contribute there?
I just want to say, as also a customer of Wine Cellar, you know, even before I started selling wine to you guys, from our perspective, you know, when I used to see in my inbox or email from Wine Cellar, I didn't be like, oh shit, it's Wine Cellar again. I was like, ooh, what have they got to offer? And that was that trust that you guys had instilled in me as a consumer, you know, years prior. It's similar to like even Yuppie Chef, because they have that authenticity, that human touch, and that fuzzy feeling, as I like to refer to when I talk to people about online sales, is that how are you going to, you know, make sure that you continue that human touch effect all the way through the customer journey, for instance. And you guys do it phenomenally well. And there's other handful of great online retailers in South Africa I think we can all learn from. And we, as a fledgling online retailer now, only 3 weeks ago launched our site for online sales, and it's busting. I mean, I don't know what to do with myself, but it really is something we have to be very cognizant of. Is how do we transfer that authenticity and that human touch? And maybe we can learn from you.
Great. Another question was, what is fine wine? Well, this is something that we talk about in every day at Wine Cellar, and we try and we're really trying to get a grips with it. But basically, wine that is made cheaply, that is made without a vision, without a terroir in mind, that can be substituted for any other wine, which is sold more like an FMCG good, that's not fine wine. As James said, you might be selling Coca-Cola if you're selling at the bottom end of the market. At the top end of the market, which is more expensive wine, terroir is important. You can't replicate the vintage, you can't replicate the wine. There's a magic, there's a passion, there's a story behind it. And that's really the game that we like playing. And the fine wine, it's mysterious, it's magic, it can't be replicated. Anyone want to answer any of the other questions? There's a big question about DCs and shipments. What is better for semi-premium and premium wines listed in stores, drop shipments or DCs, when keep cellaring in mind? Yeah, I mean, we operate fine wine, and really what's worked very well for Wine Cellar the last 2 months is that our customers generally buy their wine for long-term aging. So even if there was no deliveries, they were still very happy to order and wait for it because some of the wine they wouldn't be touching for 10 years. And this just goes into the long-term relationship that you have with someone as a retailer and as a marketeer. Because I got a phone call from a customer last week where they'd bought some Bordeaux from me 10 years ago, and they phoned me 10 years later and said, wow, that wine that you sold me 10 years ago is really nice now. And there are very few products that can do that can give you a 10-year relationship, which is, again, relates to the magic of fine wine.
Roland, if I can pose a question to you guys as Wine Cellar, is almost, being fine wine specialists, and I mean, you guys do a phenomenal job at that. But you also have to cater to the people starting out their wine journey, for instance, and are taking a liking to it and want to learn more. And how do you perhaps pay between Paige and yourself? How do you guys, market towards those people? How do you segment them? What do you do?
Yeah, that's a very difficult one. And we, 10 years, 15 years ago, we thought we have to segment our database for those that want to buy cheap wines and those that want to buy really expensive wines. And we did a bit of a trial. And one of our top customers ended up on the wrong emailing list, and he ended up buying the best value, cheapest wine that we had. And we went, oh my gosh, it just didn't work at all the way that we pleased, because he was buying this wine for his mother-in-law when she comes over, and meanwhile he wanted to buy the fine wine. So at the end of the day, we said, we're going to communicate to everyone, and if you don't want it, you don't have to take it. But let's tell the story. And what comes in there is that there's value at every single price level. There's value, and we go back to what Bubbles is drinking, that Miles Mossop Shannon. Us insiders will know that Miles actually makes a lot more of his top end wines, and sometimes he has to sort of put it into the bottom end range because it doesn't fit into his marketing budget or his sales budget, and you're actually getting the top end wine but at a much lower price. So we try and communicate that value and try and get the customers in at that 150 Rand level where we can see incredible value. So if you can be authentic about the value, then I think you can get people into the system and trade them up. Bubbles, how do you see that? I mean, as an influencer, let's call it influencer, if you're promoting a top end wine, do you feel that you're being a bit too, is it difficult to communicate to the sort of the entry level market?
I think a lot of brands, as a marketing ploy, Miles, for example, he started off with the Max and the Saskia and the family range, which were top end, but people couldn't afford them. So he bought the introduction range. So people that can afford that, then they drink the introduction every week, every day, or whenever. And then when it's a birthday or a particular celebration, then they're like, well, we know we love the introduction, let's go to the Saskia. And then they pay out for the Saskia for that one occasion. So it's a bit of a marketing thing. So just because not everyone can afford it on a daily basis doesn't mean that you can't advertise it or market it. Everyone always wants a Porsche or a Range Rover or whatever. It doesn't matter if they're driving around a little cramped out Beetle. You still have a dream and you still aspire to that. And one day you will buy it when you have the money and it's a special occasion or whatever. So, just because people can't afford it, they still want to know about it. And there's normally something from a producer. So Melanews as well. They've got great wines at all different tiers, but the Clue Street wines are flipping fantastic as well. And people who can afford that. And one day they'll be able to buy up in the range, hopefully.
Cool, great point. Okay, we're moving on through the hour. Mike?
Yeah, I have a quick point. I mean, ultimately, we're asking the question about post-COVID. And if everybody is swarming into online, and when I say everybody, I'm talking about wineries. If every winery is set up an online shop, how do you handle your pricing? Because if you're selling through a multiple number of retailers and you're selling online in good faith, good customers, established relationships, how do you manage your pricing? Because I think this might be the new secret sauce of the post-COVID-19 generation. The people that get their pricing right and have open conversations with their downstream clients are the people that are going to be successful. If you are selling wine on your website at 20% cheaper than your downstream retailers that are selling it online, well, that's all going to feed through to Wine Searcher. There's no transparency these days. The internet reveals everything. You simply cannot hide. And so I think pricing strategy, an intelligent pricing strategy, is going to be something that defines the successes of the future, because you're likely going to be available on multiple online platforms. And if you screw one person, they will never forget.
Yeah,
completely, Mike. That's a great point. And we see this often. And I think one of the big dangers for a lot of wineries out there is the opportunity to try and claw back some of the sales, maybe claw back some customers and discount in this era. And at Wine Cellar, we refuse to sell discounted wines. Once you start discounting, we believe there's no way back. And we've seen a few brands that over the time have started discounting, and their retail prices just start trending towards the discount price, because the consumer then starts realizing that the new price is actually the discounted price.
Yeah, let me interject here. I always use, it's probably dangerous to use a brand, but there's quite a famous brand that makes some amazing cookware that you put on top of your stove, and it's the best that the French can offer you. But most of us know that if you ever buy that at full price, you're a complete idiot, because it is going to be a 20% discount at some other stage in its life. So are you ever going to buy it at full price? And that's a very good example of something that's super quality. And just that's what you mustn't do. That's marketing 101. I don't think that's a great idea when it comes to top-end fine wine.
Great point. It's a great point. Any closing facets of information? What I must mention is that we have some apprenticeships that we're offering at Wine Cellar, and this is another way that we really just want to spread the skills and get more people excited about fine wine. It takes some time to get involved with fine wine. We completely understand, and the likes of Paige, who started with Wine Cellar 4 or 5 years ago, it took you some time to get into fine wine and what we do. So we're offering 3-month apprenticeships in the logistics side and in the fine wine sales side, where you'll literally get to assist and shadow us in fine wine sales and marketing, and see if maybe this is something for you. And if you're really good and you're successful, then we'll hire you. So that's a really important part of what we're trying to do. And then next week, we have a really cool panel next week. Not that you guys are not cool, but next week we've got Johan Reinecker, who is the best farmer on the planet, in my view. We've got Donny Carinas, who's the second best farmer in the planet, in my view. And then we've got Chris Molyneux, who's one of the greatest winemakers, the wine people. You know, him and Andrew have built an incredible business today, and the skills that he's picked up along the way and developed on the long way must be fascinating. And then Tinashe, who was at the Test Kitchen and various other establishments for a long time in the hospitality industry. He's gone. The big news really is that he's gone on his own, and he's promoting his own wine. So we're going to hear from Tinashe about what are the skills, what are the challenges for consumer wines, and that's going to be quite fascinating to hear from him next week. So Paige, did I miss any questions that we can maybe just tick off quickly? Oh, there's a question about a wine mentor. Wow, that is number one. I mean, I've got a few wine mentors on the screen already, and they continue to be wine mentors. And what's so important about wine is it's an expensive product. I mean, we completely understand this, and I can't afford to drink first growth wines, and but luckily I know people that have first growth wines, and they're happy to share them. And in my wine history, I've had a few mentors, and James was one of them at the Vineyard Connection when I worked there almost 20 years ago. He was a mentor to me. He showed me the ropes in fine wine, and I think that's really important. Mike, you I'm sure have had mentors in the past, and you probably act as a bit of a mentor yourself today. Completely. Okay, folks. Well, thank you very much for everyone joining. Yeah, if you want to join the apprenticeship program, you don't have to be in hospitality. That's what it was aimed for. But if you've got the passion, we are. You know, you would think that we'd have a lot of people that are eager to work at Wine Cellar. The crazy fact is that we get a lot more international students or workers applying for jobs at Wine Cellar than we get locals. And that doesn't make sense. I started almost as an apprentice when I got out of university, and I think it's such a great idea just to understand an industry before you start finding your line or finding the way to operate. Thanks, everyone, and this will be available on YouTube, and it's great. Thank you to Lo and to Bubbles and to Mike for all your contributions, James and Paige, and we'll see you again next week for hopefully another interesting discussion. And for those of you that have ordered wine during lockdown, thank you very much. We're going to deliver it as soon as possible. We're working throughout tomorrow and Sunday to pack the orders, and we're going to try and get them to you as soon as possible, depending on the couriers. The couriers are going to be completely and utterly slammed, so you know, we'll try our best. Thank you very much to everyone, and yeah, have a wonderful weekend and happy wine from next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.